Hey, John Gilroy here. I guess the best time of the year to do predictions is in January. Today, we have world-famous Bob Stevens from Gitlab giving us some federal tech predictions. Hit the music, Manny. Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, the podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. The aforementioned world-famous Bob Stevens, Vice President at GitLab, Gitlab. Have you polished up your crystal ball here, Bob?
It's polished and ready to go, John, and thanks for elevating me to the world.
World-famous, yeah, that's great. Well, if you got a crystal ball that works, you can be real world. All the baseball people are going to come over and want to know what the game's going to come out this summer, so it's good. Yeah, I know. I've been doing this a long time. You've been doing this a long time. We've seen all kinds of ebbs and flows and changes and cloud first and just we can almost predict what's going on here. Mm-hmm. So what I've asked you to do is just don't give me 300 predictions. Just get three maybe general topics or waves that you've seen. And between us both, we got some gray hair. We've seen some good things and bad things, and maybe I'll contrast with some of these. The first one I want to talk about is that your crystal ball tells me that there's going to be AI-driven modernization at scale. Now, modernization has been around since, 2000. Why AI, why modernization, and why in 2026?
Well, I mean, you're right. Modernization has been around. You said 2000, but I'll say that it's probably been in existence since we created the first device of any sort out there, or wrote any software of any type out there. But I think that this is the year that we can, and the government in particular, can do it at scale because AI is going to help them in ways that they haven't gotten assistance in the past, right? So, just as an example, AI can be used to refactor a legacy code development application. So, COBOL, Fortran, C++, anything, that was written years and years and years ago, when the expertise likely doesn't exist to even understand what was written, you can now use AI to not only help understand it, but to rewrite it, to refactor that application into a more common language. So that you can modernize, and it can be done a lot faster than in the past. Imagine somebody trying to go through, a legacy C++, and they've never had any training on it. How long is it going to take them to go through every line of code, decide what it's doing, and then refactor it? It would just take months and months, if not a year. But that refactoring can be done in weeks now. So AI is really going to help drive the modernization at scale.
Bob, I tell my students that in order to be terrific, you got to be specific. And so there's a specific number. Some people are talking about, now I don't know if this is 10 times faster. Is that valid, really?
It is, yes. And that's the promise of AI, and in particular, agentic AI. I think when we first started applying AI to the DevSecOps world, it was more code suggestions. And I'm not sure that a whole lot of developers used it for that reason, or got a whole lot of value out of it. But now that they've got the opportunity to add agents to their process, they can be, a single developer can be working on 5 or 6 things at the same time because they've now got an agent assigned to whatever that task is. So yes, I think 10x might be a conservative estimate on the increase.
So the goal here is the business logic. So what you want to do is bring the coding up to modern standards while still maintaining the business logic, because the business logic has been kicked around and knocked and tried and failed and maybe even perfected over 15, 20 years with some of these systems. We talk about COBOL and Fortran. So the business logic is the prize here, huh?
It is, yes. And there's a reason that logic was put in place to begin with, and we shouldn't forget that or lose it. It's just the applications that are written around it in order to take full advantage of it. So, as I said, the agentic AI is really going to help, those developers do things a lot faster. And, agencies serve their citizens better than they've ever been able to do it in the past. So with a lot of efficiencies, not only in the productivity of a developer, but also cost savings. One of the problems, this, you've been doing this for a long time, right? One of the problems the government runs into is that they've got to continue to maintain things that have existed for years and years and years. So being able to shed that and the cost associated with that is going to be an enormous benefit for all the agencies out there.
I tell my students, in order to be specific, got to be terrific. We know that. But I get the next question I'd ask you is that, well, where's GitLab fit in this? Because GitLab, positioned itself carefully as far as the scale and modernization and using AI. Where does GitLab fit in for my listeners?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. I appreciate it. So, of course, we've built the DevSecOps platform. So, the entire software development lifecycle is included in that platform, and we've added the AI capabilities across the entire SDLC. So it's not just one aspect. So I talked about code suggestions earlier. That's just a piece of the development process. You want to be able to do you want to check for vulnerabilities. You want to fix vulnerabilities. You want to, documentation is like super important when you're doing development, but most developers don't want to take the time to do it, right? So I can use AI to do all of that now. The security audits and checking for vulnerabilities and not just checking for them, but also fixing them. So GitLab gives you all of these capabilities and a whole lot more with the AI solution that goes across the entire development life cycle.
I was just thinking about your introduction of predicting the future. When I wrote for the Washington Post, I tell people I was the Oracle of the Potomac. maybe that title will be switched to you, because I think everything you said about agentic, I think that's true, and I think this is the sweet spot, I think, for AI is this code development. Now, I'm not talking about all the other stuff, the legal implications, leaky. I mean, there's all kinds of problems there. But I think if we focused on this one narrow aspect, I think it's really going to be so. First prediction, I agree with you. John Gilroy, the Oracle of Potomac, agrees with you. Let's go to your second prediction. Defense to offense. What do you mean? So what you're saying is that government agencies will shift from reactive to proactive security models. So it's active threat hunting. So what do you mean by this, proactive?
Yeah, well, again, AI is going to help, tremendously with this process. I think the government has always sort of wanted to switch from reactive to proactive. There's no doubt. Every business, for that matter, wants to do it. It's just, having the technology to enable it. And I think AI allows that. So, if let's just use, SolarWinds as an example, because that's sort of a famous one, a vulnerability that existed out there. Imagine, being able to go through your entire repo in a matter of days and determine where that vulnerability impacted you, and then being able to assign an agent to help fix it. Of course, you'll need a human to review it afterwards. But just imagine the speed at which you can do that versus, what's occurred in the past. And it's really AI that's going to help it, enable that. And the government has also had this big push over the last few years to do zero trust, and which is pushing security out to the farthest point in the network or the infrastructure. But they've never sort of had the ability to proactively watch or do continuous monitoring, which is then reacted upon by some, AI agent versus having a human that has to go through it. So all of that, I think, is going to really help them get to the point where, they're just going to make our infrastructure and their systems a lot safer.
Bob, I don't know if you went to the Billington conference in the fall, 3-day conference. I sat on a bunch of different panels, standing room only, many of the rooms in there. And the person on stage used a phrase that you used in your predictions here, automated remediation. When someone said that on stage, someone's head kind of like the eyebrows, the eyebrows go up and go, whoa. It was like, oh. Yeah. So I think there's one thing to remediate, but then another thing to automatic. So there's got to be some kind of a gradation in there I can see where some automation can lead you down some perilous paths.
Well, sure. Yeah. And that's why I mentioned you got to have the human review, right? We shouldn't just allow AI to put things in place that haven't been reviewed by a human. I think that is going to be, continue to be key for a long, long time. And in fact, GitLab talks about, the DevSecOps of the future is a human plus AI. It's not just AI that's being used to do the development work.
Yeah, I think that's what people don't really understand is that if software developers are using AI tools to improve code, well, same can go on the other side of the coin here, where the malicious actors can use the exact same tools. And I've heard of all kinds of creative things now. Used to be ransomware as a service. Now there's all kinds of exploits as a service being available because AI is making it so much easier. So we have to welcome to the NFL. You got to move up your game.
Yeah. I mean, you're spot on. I mean, the bad actors are definitely using AI. And so, we need to use it to combat it. What better tool to be able to do it with, right? So,
Bob Stevens, prediction number 3 for 2026: the universal developer vision becomes a reality across government federal agencies. You mean my next door neighbor, the guy at the 7-Eleven, the guy at Monk's Barbecue can just start putting together code? Is that what you're talking about? Universal developer?
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's interesting. I was talking to the CIO of the Air Force, many years ago, and she said, I want every airman to be a developer. And I thought she was crazy. I was like, how is that even possible? I'm like, I was an airman. I don't know how to develop. I've never written code in my life, right? How am I going to develop? But with the introduction of AI and again agentic AI, I could actually write an application. And who better to write applications for projects like the F-35 than the pilot who uses it every single day? They're the ones that know what should be done and when, or how things should be done and when. And so they should be an integral part of the development process. And I think that with the advent of agentic AI, that's where we're headed. Is that everyone can now, contribute to the development of the software that's required to be able to operate and run, the many systems that we have out there in the government.
Bob, I mentioned gray hair earlier, and I do have gray hair. And traditionally, this is back before you were in college, is that there would be an analyst who'd walk over to Pilot Bob and ask him what he wants out of a system, and then he or she would come back and write up those requirements, then go back to the pilot. Is that what you want? Then write the requirements, then this person would go to the developer and say, this is what I think the pilot wants. I mean, you can imagine like translating this from Sumerian to Latin to Japanese. I mean, but what you described there, that cut out the middleman, that cut out the project manager, because instead of asking Pilot Bob what he wants out of a visual apparatus, he puts it in himself. So that really, the whole old school methodology for developing software kind of gets the rug pulled out from under it, huh?
It does. And again, we get back to this, the speed to mission, right? And, just imagine how much faster things are going to be, so instead of writing the application and then giving it to the pilot and saying, hey, does this work for you? And them saying, no, here are the many reasons why. And now you've got to go back to the drawing board, refactor everything and, change it all and try and interpret, like you said, what they think they need. None of that needs to occur anymore. They're all part of the process. And so the outcome is a lot better in the end for everybody.
I work with many software developers over the year. I can tell you stories about consuming Mountain Dew all night long. I worked with a developer once who brought a cot into work so he could my opinion of software developers is that they can be very, very compulsive and very, very thorough, and they can be thorough about security as well. And so how does that obsessive compulsive function on detail, how does that apply to a pilot who really wasn't trained, to understand backups and impacts of systems, unintended consequences, I think is what they've used. So how does that work? I mean, the security is a different layer than the end user?
I mean, it used to be, but it doesn't have to be anymore. And that's the beauty of it, right? Security is now part of the software development lifecycle. So, just as an example, I write some code. Maybe I write 20 lines of code. I check it in. It's evaluated right then and there for any potential, vulnerability that might exist. Or, I sucked in a library from somewhere, and that library, unfortunately had some sort of vulnerability, or we created a vulnerability as a result of how we're using it. Again, it's scanned immediately. So I know as a developer, I need to fix this like right now. Or again, back to the agentic AI story, right? I can have an agent fix it for me, an AI agent, so that I can go off and work on other things while the agent is repairing whatever it is that needs to be repaired. And then again, as a human, I review it, and then then I merge it into the code. So just imagine how much time is saved, and how secure that application is going to be when it's complete now, versus what occurred in the past, where the developer would write it, they'd go to their security tools, they'd scan it, it would give pages and pages of reports, they'd go back, do it again, scan it again. None of that needs to occur anymore.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'm thinking about dependencies and unintended consequences, and would it be possible that the AI code that who watches the watchman, who checks the code, what if there's inadequacies or weaknesses or vulnerabilities in that code, and that can be attacked? I mean, we see people attacking APIs now. We never dreamed about that 10 years ago. So can the checking code be attacked?
I don't know if it can be attacked. I guess, if you've got I guess if you're building a large language model, and, some bad actors could potentially get in there and insert some malicious code. But, this is where we rely on the human again, right? I'm not going to suggest that, an agent, reviews and fixes some sort of vulnerability and then it's automatically merged into the code base. A human needs to check it to make sure that what the suggestion that's been made is going to be the true fix to the solution, and not introduce additional issues or concerns in the software that you're developing.
Universal developer, democratizing development. Have you seen that recently? Is it actually going on?
It is, yes. And back to what I was saying about, the CIO of the Air Force that I was talking to, she was spot on. I mean, we are seeing sort of non-developers play a key role in the development process across the board for all the reasons that, that we talked about. It's more productive. The outcome, is 5-star, and then of course the speed to mission, which is what we all want in the government. And the government has, as we know, they have a different mission in a lot of ways, right? They're out to protect our infrastructure, critical infrastructure, and in our country. So and so they've got to react and create things very, very quickly. And so this technology and the opportunity for everybody to be involved in the development process will help speed things up and ensure that they are producing the best possible outcome.
Bob, you know me for a long time, and I'm a know-it-all, think I know everything about everything. And when young people ask me for advice, I have no problem with just jumping in and making recommendations. You should do this and you should do that. And now last week I sat down with a 27-year-old guy who's going through college to be an accountant, and he said, "Well, John, can you give me advice for the next 5 years?" And to tell you the truth, John Gilroy, Mr. Know-It-All, I said, be flexible. So what advice do you give to your next door neighbor, Bob, who's studying accounting or computer science? It's that position where that crystal ball, I don't know how it can apply to these young people now. It just seems, so I was flabbergasted. I said, well, his name's Alemno, I just don't know. Be good at school and be flexible. What's your advice, Bob, for people studying computer science? As much as you can. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that be flexible, of course, is fantastic advice. But I would encourage them to learn and know as much about AI as they possibly can, especially when it relates to the DevSecOps process or the computer science field. That's going to be key. I also think that focus maybe on security. Security is not going anywhere. Security is going to be a requirement as long as people are developing code, and since everything's becoming software, that's not going to go away. So I think a really strong understanding of security, really strong understanding of AI, and then how to develop a very robust infrastructure from a security standpoint as well. So that's more than just developing code or ensuring that code is secure. That's also ensuring that you've got the proper firewalls or configurations in your networking gear, whatever it is, right? I think those are all things that aren't going anywhere. So, try and focus and be flexible and understand all of them so that, you can make yourself more marketable.
You just said DevSecOps, and I think Gitlab can help my listeners with a white paper about DevSecOps with an application for the federal government. Is that true?
It is, yes. We just produced a report. It's called the Intelligent Software Development Era: How AI Will Redefine DevSecOps in Public Sector. So it is focused on public sector. That doesn't happen often, but we had a lot of great findings in there. 95% of the developers say that they're using AI in some way, and half of them say that they're using 5 tools or more. John,
Whoa.
AI tools or more, which I have a little bit of a concern with. I've been out talking to a lot of enterprise customers as well, and they're like, yeah, we got like 10 AI solutions deployed right now. And I'm like, what? Why would you do that? Well, we're just trying to figure out which ones will fall off the table. Like, it seems like a pretty expensive proposition to me.
So what I'll do is I'll put a link in the show notes so you can download that DevSecOps for Public Sector publication. And I think there's do you have a workshop in town coming up, Transcend workshop? Is that sometime?
Yes.
The winter here?
Yes, so Transcend, and it's going to be it's a virtual event, but we're also having viewing parties in quite a few cities out there, Washington, D.C. being one of them. It's on February 10th, and we'll have a whole host of guest speakers, and we'll be talking about our vision for DevSecOps and AI and the use of agentic AI in the DevSecOps world. So I think it's a real great opportunity to understand where we believe things are going from a DevSecOps perspective.
And I think the listeners would like to know from your perspective, if an organization is using 6 tools, what's the suggested number? There's made a lot of confusion because I think companies may come and go and they may dive into a tool, but maybe get some advice on which ones are going to be around. Maybe you can predict that. I think ChatGPT is going to be, I think Claude is going to be around, but Grok, some obvious ones, but not all of them. There's tons. There's just tons to choose from. Wow.
Yeah, and you're sort of alluding to this, John, but I totally agree with what you're saying. We've all seen these technology waves. The AI is another one. And so, AI companies are springing up all over the place, and there will be a consolidation at some point, which is what you're saying. Right? So I think, my suggestion is always figure out what your requirements are and then find the tool that meets those requirements. Don't look at some data sheet and say, oh, these are the things I need, right? Really sit down and understand the things you need for your situation, and then go find the tool that matches those requirements.
Yeah, it's going to be out there sooner or later. This has been a real fun interview here. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Bob Stevens, Vice President at Gitlab. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, John.